Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special podcast between myself, Christopher Anatra, and my friend, Cynthia Sue Larson. I'm putting back on my quantum businessman hat, and we're going to talk about some recent Mandela effects, some that you may have heard of, some that you may not have heard of. But what are they? What do they mean? Because if you watch my videos, I love to always find the hidden meaning within the Mandela effects. So we have a very special presentation, and we're going to branch off into other subjects as well. So Cynthia, welcome.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, so good to talk with you again. Since the last episode that we did, it seems relevant. What you have found, that you checked in with me and said, would you like to talk about this? Everybody's in for a treat today. Got a couple of doozies, really good ones, really good.
Yeah, and I think the first one we're going to talk about, I think we're going to be the first ones to reveal this one.
Yes.
It's very special. And when you tune into it, I think is actually very wonderful from a situation in our history that wasn't really that great. So do we want to just start and get right into this first Mandela effect?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. So to give everybody some context, this is from 1989, Beijing, China, Tiananmen Square, and the Tiananmen Square protests. And a lot of people remember a figure named Tank Man. And Tank Man was someone that was very special because he was a lone individual that stopped this line of tanks that were about to enter where the protesters were. Now, for some of us, we had noticed a Mandela effect about this going back, I don't know, maybe 10 years, Cynthia?
Yeah, because we covered it in a green room episode for International Mandela Effect Conference. So it did come up, but things have changed since then. That's what's mind-boggling, because I know if we saw what we're now about to look at back then, we would have been covering it. I mean, for sure.
Yeah. So to give everyone some context, a lot of us have a memory where originally in the video or the film that was smuggled out of China, Tank Man died. He was run over by the tank. And what I remember that happened in my reality after this happened, there was like worldwide outrage about this. Like, how could a government do this to their own people, especially with Tank Man? And one of the things I talk about, because I remember this so clearly, is that there was so much outrage. Not only did it unite the world, it united China, and China became a democracy. And I remember in the 1990s, like watching ABC News, and like almost every night they'd have a little bit of coverage, maybe a minute or two, about what was going on in China and how they were modeling their democracy after the United States Constitution. And I remember scenes of like their Senate or their Congress, and they were just getting all things organized and so forth. But it was remarkable. It was like, wow, China is becoming a true democracy. And then for myself, I don't know, just something switched. Like in the late 90s or early 2000s, I saw some kind of report about communist China, and I'm like, communist China? What happened? When did they go back to communism? And it turns out they were always that way in this particular time stream. And then when I was tuning into it, I was getting that this had to do with Chinese military time travel, because they did not want China to become a democracy. So they knew how to go back and do the time travel and then edit that change the sequence of events and then edit that into the main time stream of this reality. So Cynthia, do you remember things kind of being that same way originally?
I don't remember. I remember it was starting to move toward the democracy, but I don't remember it going full on or so much of what you remember. But I do remember that was happening. And yeah, clearly things changed after that. I remember it got suddenly different. I was kind of busy in the 1990s. So, I was a new mom, so I was preoccupied. So when this came out in 89, yeah, that whole time period was not optimal for me to be watching what was going on. But I do remember Tiananmen Square, and just like, it was such a dark moment in history, but then so much good came out of it. So that was powerful.
Yeah, and then we got hit with the first Mandela effect.
Yes.
What do you remember that first Mandela effect related to this being?
Well, the first one I remember was just like I was seeing, like, now I'm calling him Tank Man. There was a video of one of the people stopping tanks, and before he'd just been run over, but now he has the nerve to climb. He's carrying bags and he's just like climbing up. I don't know what he was doing, shopping or something, and now he's on top of the lead tank, on top of it. Like, this is happening. Like, why didn't they show this footage before? That was my question. I didn't jump to reality has shifted. I went to, how did they withhold this? Like, this is pretty amazing footage. Why not share all of it at the time? This is a normal reaction that even those of us that might be noticing Mandela effects would have. That's sort of the logical go-to. So I just thought, why would they conceal that? And I came to find out that was not concealed. This was supposedly always the case. And my mind just went tilt, like, does not compute. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, when I saw that too, and I'm like, Tank Man lived? And he jumps up on the tank, he talks to the driver, he's holding his bags of groceries or whatever. They're having a little conversation. He climbs down from the tank, and then he kind of exits stage right. He just goes to the right, and then no one's ever seen him again.
Right.
So we're like, wow, Tank Man actually lived in this particular version of reality. Now things have yet changed again.
And do you have a time marker on that last one? We could give. It doesn't matter because people notice these things at different times.
Oh, so for myself, I noticed it about a month ago.
Oh, for the one we're about to reveal.
The one we're about to reveal, I kind of noticed.
And climbing up on the tank. That one was.
Was it 2016 or 2017 when people started noticing that one?
Probably, yeah. It sounds about right. But it's interesting because it was decades after the original incident, right?
Yeah, decades. So what I want to do now is play for everyone the Tank Man video. So we'll just watch it all the way through. It's only like a 1 or 2 minute clip, and then we could like discuss it. So let's see,
To the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace, which, as it happened, was already occupied. He walked to the middle, when a man walked to the middle of the Avenue of Eternal Peace, which, as it happened, was already occupied. He walked to the middle and stood there. The man was alone. The tank was not. It wasn't just a single tank he stopped. There were 18 tanks and armored carriers in this convoy, and while he talked to the crew and ignored the gunfire, he stopped all of them. One man alone, of course, can't stop an army. Except for a moment, that's exactly what happened here. For 3 minutes in the middle of the day, an army was stopped by a man who stood still. A man who'd made up his mind, it seems, though why we just don't know. But when bystanders rushed in to save this stubborn soul, it wasn't easily done. He was pushed away at last, faceless in the crowd. Safe, we think, but in a city verging on calamity. What moves a man to just stand still? Is it courage or outrage or madness? We can't tell what was on his mind, and we can't forget what he did. Richard Roth, CBS News, Beijing.
Okay. So there you go. To me, I noticed there's maybe 3 Mandela effects. There's the one big one, and then there's some other things I didn't see before. But so Cynthia, what jumped out at you about this particular video that's changed now?
The man is rescued. The crowd comes right up to him, drags him off. I don't remember any of that. And it was spoken as if this was the original newscast. So it should have been something that was released right from the start. And then I would expect to have seen that many times. I did not. This is the first time I'm seeing it since you brought it to my attention. In all the years since 1989, when the Tiananmen Square incident occurred.
Yeah, exactly. So when I was watching again, I was expecting him like the Mandela effect we spotted about 10 years ago. I expected him to just walk away. And now there's the crowd of bystanders that actually like take him and move him to safety. So that is something that is definitely new. And I think there's some hidden meanings to that. So,
and you said there's a couple of other things you noticed.
Yeah. So there's a couple other things. I'll see if I can go back to that video again. But one of the things about this Tank Man Mandela effect is that I don't think it's a memory glitch. I think it's more of a cosmic download about the evolution of our collective consciousness. Because now we have a situation where the collective is expanding and we're helping each other. So, like, to give everyone kind of that scenario, first he's crushed, indicating no escape.
Yes.
Then he walks to the right, kind of the individual path. And now he's pulled to the left, the collective path. So, like, this is really interesting. I'm going to see if I can get back to that, showing that video again.
This is brand new footage from
It was
1989.
noontime today in the center of on Calamity. What moves a man to just
Go
stand
back a little bit more here.
in to save this stubborn soul? It wasn't easily done. He was pushed away at last, faceless in the crowd. Safe, we think, but in a city verging on calamity. A man walked to the middle of the
So basically, we've got this situation, you know, where people come out and they save him. That was not there before. So I think that's a big advantage. It's almost like a reflection of what's going on in our reality. It's almost like as we expand our consciousness, it's the same type of thing. Like reality starts to change to reflect how the expansion that we're having. So that was really fascinating. The other thing that I had not seen before, and let me see if we can go back to this again. See if we can get the right timestamp here.
avenue of eternal peace, which as it happened was already occupied. He walked to the middle and stood there. The man was alone. The tank was not. It wasn't just a single tank he stopped. There were 18.
Okay, so I wanted to stop there. 18 tanks. I never saw that before. I never saw the 18 tanks. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to show this other photo. What's happened now is that now we're getting, like, everything is changing.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more to this Mandela effect. One of the things that's different is that in my old timeline, there was only one film that was smuggled out of China. Now there are 3 independent films of Tank Man that were smuggled out of China. And I was doing some research on that, and I was like, how did they smuggle it out? And some people, they hid the film in their underwear. They did whatever they could to smuggle it out. But now there's 3 films. So the first one was made by a man named Jonathan Sher from CNN, and his footage is the most widely distributed. And then the second one was somebody named Willy Fu from the not American Broadcasting Company, Australian Broadcasting Company. He was the first to transmit the historical footage segments from Beijing. And then the third was someone named Tony Wasserman from NBC News. And Wasserman's angle provides an alternative perspective of the avenue of eternal peace. So now we actually have 3 films instead of 1, which to me seems to indicate the truth multiplies when consciousness expands. So I'm like, and you know what this reminds me of?
What? Yes. Yeah, because it's the same thing with the film footage, recording a shocking incident of some international concern. You're right. Yeah, because I only remember the Zapruder film of the JFK.
Yeah, that's all there was in my old timeline until around the year 2016. And then the Orville Nix film got revealed, and then the Bronson film and the Much More film. It's crazy. And not only that, but there could be more, but there's at least 5 still photographs of the JFK assassination, ones that were taken precisely as the shots were fired. And again, that wasn't the case. Now there's just so much information or data that's come into the reality that we're in now.
That is very interesting. I've got a question for you, Chris, because in the clip we're showing of this Tiananmen Square, we're not currently showing the tank man going up on top of the tank as much as I remembered. Is that still there, or?
Yeah, that's still there. The video that
Okay, so we just didn't dwell on it. It's a longer film. Piece
yeah,
of
it's
film.
cut out
Okay,
the middle
that
part.
part's the same. Okay, it's worth mentioning in case people wonder what happened. Did he still climb on top of the tank? Like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
still there. Okay.
The other thing too is that, you know, these 18 tanks that are now visible,
Yes.
this is how the moon keeps photobombing our reality. But for those that are into the tarot, 18 is the moon card, which symbolizes illusion, intuition, and the subconscious. It's kind of like a perfect Mandela Effect mirror. So
Yes.
could that be a connection to all these things that are going on?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely worth mentioning it. And my name's Cynthia. It comes from Mount Cynthus, Diana. So it's of the moon as well.
Aha.
My name. So that's another bizarre thing. I mean, of course, I'm involved in this, but to me, the moon is significant. Well, we'll talk a lot about it today. So we'll come back to it.
We'll definitely get back to that. Yes. And then I just took a couple more notes here about the bystanders rushing in. So it's that shift from the isolated heroism to the collective courage that we're all starting to experience together. And it's a reflection of how reality evolves as we remember together.
Yes.
And to me, it's all about remembering, because, you know, I could talk about this or you could talk about that and we could provide evidence and so forth, or, you know, we're not trying, like my whole thing is I don't want to convince anyone of anything. I want them to remember, because once you remember things, nobody's going to be able to tell you anything else, because you'll like, no, I remember this is the way it was, or this is the way the reality works, or whatever the situation is. So that whole remembrance for me is super important.
Absolutely. And it's nice to see things changing for the better. I'm actually encouraged to see that what I remember was a little bit darker than what's now the actual fact. So I like seeing that we can remember something that may have been rather negative or dark, and now that history seems to be changing. I recently gave a talk in Ireland about, well, it was on the topic. The title of the talk was, I'm looking at it, Quantum Gifts of Delayed Choice in Irish Gaelic. So it was a talk given in Ireland for a conference conducted in Irish. Well, not entirely Irish because I don't speak Gaelic, but there's definitely the imprecatory order in ancient Irish language, which predates English by thousands of years. And the imprecatory mode of speech is to acknowledge that we can actually expect that something good may have happened in the past, but we haven't yet seen the full evidence of it. And that is very powerful. It matches this whole thing of delayed choice in physics, which is the quantum slit experiment, that you can actually observe. You can set up an observational device, and based on where you place it, you can impact previous events. So you can change what did happen based on how you observe from the future. So we are having an effect. So I love your little footnotes here on this whole Tiananmen Square. I love your take on it. And I just want to say there's a basis in physics for this. And it's also a basis in ancient knowledge, kind of built right into some of our languages, which I think is quite striking.
Yeah, and so some of these things I'm putting at the bottom of the screen are some of the notes that I was taking as I was putting this together. And yeah, it really goes into what you're saying. It's the universe's way of saying the game has changed. The old script is rewriting itself. And how the collective's internal broadcast, when aligned to a higher code,
Yes.
literally rewrites the perceived history to match the current energetic state. So we're living in such amazing times, aren't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm finding it really exciting. And it seems like this theme is showing up all over the place. Because when you suggested this talk, pretty much exactly at the same time, I was hearing from Paola Harris that she loves the group BTS, and the Grammys had offered them a little special. They could be included in the Grammys if they participated as, being representatives of Asian music. And there are 7 members of that group. They conferred amongst themselves and respectfully declined the offer. And within 24, all of that's kind of newsworthy of itself. But then here's the part that ties in with Tiananmen Square and what you're noticing. Within 24 hours, the BTS army of fans, they call themselves Army, they just went out to across 78 different countries and regions internationally to make one of the songs on the new album by BTS, #1. And it's the song called Aliens. So that's interesting too, because we'll be talking about the moon, and that also sort of ties in. But the point that I want to make is that it was collective. It was very much like the community across the world standing with BTS and saying, your music is much more than just Asian music. It deserves to stand on its own and be in the running be considered for best album and so forth, best song. So they sort of took action by purchasing, this song Aliens on the iTunes platform worldwide. And it's quite stunning. So it shows, again, not just about BTS, but like you're saying, for all of us, that there's a big change happening. These things are there for all of us, whether it's Tiananmen Square or the BTS army. It just shows that we have support, and this is starting to happen collectively.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Especially when we're there to observe these things. We're not just standing in the background, but we're observant of our reality. And when we see these things in front of us, whether it's information coming in about aliens or Mandela effects or the moon or whatever it happens to be, it's really amazing that we're right there to spot them and then translate what they actually mean in our reality. Because I firmly believe on the other side of this game, we've got information. The players that are really in control to some extent of our avatars are giving us this information for us to see. I'm getting all kinds of physical things in my reality that reflect things that are going on when I'm starting to write things and so forth, whether it's my That's No Moon series or whatever. Things just like come to me. And then I see them in my physical reality. And I'm like, how did that happen? So it's pretty cool. So if you're ready, we can jump to our next Mandela effect.
Let's go. Yeah.
Okay, so this one kind of has to do with the moon too. Mm-hmm. This one actually is one that if you follow Mandela effects, you probably already know about this. I heard people talking about it probably at least a few weeks ago. One of them was our friend who we love, Moneybags. He made like a video about it. And this has to do with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So let's see if I can get this.
And that's the name of the book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Yes.
Yeah. So we've got Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, this is interesting. I'll just talk about the main Mandela effect, and then there's another one that I'll talk about as well. But the main one has to do with Charlie and how now in this particular reality, instead of his grandparents, let me see if I can add this picture to the stage.
And here we've got the movie Willy Wonka. So the title's a bit different. Same story. Yeah.
It's funny. So I'm using this program called StreamYard, and the things that I'm clicking on to show is not matching. So maybe there's a bug in the program, but I'm like, how come it's showing the wrong images? Anyway, so this is like the Mandela effect people have been talking about. So there is a scene in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory where his grandparents, Grandpa Joe, Grandma Josephine, Grandpa George, and Grandma Georgina, whatever her name was, they all had like, they're all sleeping in that same bed, right? I'm like, oh my God, if I was one of those grandparents, I think I'd probably sleep on the floor. But I'm sure it was cold in the bucket home, so they all had to sleep together. But there's an initial scene of Charlie's birthday where they give him, or Grandpa Joe gives him this birthday gift. And a lot of us remember it being the Wonka bar. And now in this reality, it's always been a moon pie. So again, moon has like jumped into our reality here. But, you know, and later in the movie, he goes to a chocolate shop and he actually buys a Wonka bar. And that's when he actually finds the golden ticket. So, first of all, Cynthia, I wanted to ask you from your memory, is this a Mandela effect for you about the moon pie?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I don't know what's going. I didn't check the book to see if that changed too, but I remember both the book and this movie. For me, it was just a regular Wonka bar, like a rectangular bar. That something that Grandpa Joe would expect. Maybe there's a golden ticket inside. This thing, this round thing. What the heck? You know, if I had seen that, I'd think, what is Grandpa Joe doing? Give the boy a chance, you know, at least by the, because as I remember it, the golden tickets were, it made sense. The ticket was kind of the shape of the chocolate bar. It's not the shape of a circle. There's no way Grandpa Joe would have done that to Charlie. So the whole thing is shocking. What on earth is going on? Or what on the moon pie? Yeah.
I know, it's shocking. It totally is, because today I had another Mandela effect with this, because when I'm telling you, when I was doing my research for this, in the book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, he also had a Wonka bar for his birthday gift. Now in the book, it's always been one of these moon pies called, I know the book changed too. Wonka's Little Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight.
Oh my gosh.
So now we had the movie that changed,
yes.
And now the book by Roald Dahl, that has changed as well.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's like almost day by day, moment by moment. You don't know what to expect.
I should check I've got a really old hard copy version of this. It's probably changed now. This is what tends to happen. They all change yeah, there's the golden ticket.
Yeah.
As this from the movie. Yeah.
So let me see if I could. Okay, so basically, I'm going to talk about the moon a little bit, but one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the name of the movie. So for a lot of people, this was one of the first Mandela effects. Mm-hmm. That the name of the movie changed from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So, and again, like probably in the 2016, 2017 range is when people are like, why did they change it to Willy Wonka? Like, why is he now the star of the movie instead of Charlie? Or why is he now the main focus of the book? So that's interesting. And then when Tim Burton made the 2005 version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that's still called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And in the scene, the birthday scene, he still gets the Wonka bar. He doesn't get the moon pie. So everything is kind of like very fluid with the reality, and how the timelines and time streams are merging together. It's like literally happening right before our eyes.
Cool. That is interesting.
Yeah. So let's see if I could. Yeah. So Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, for a lot of people, this is kind of one of those Mandela effects where the title has changed, like Sex in the City to Sex in the City. You know, Looney Tunes, Toons. Now it's always been Looney Tunes, Tunes. And by the way, Looney has to do with the loon, Daffy Duck, the moon. Again, the moon is involved. There's also that other famous Mandela Effect interview with a vampire. And now it's in Israeli, it's always called Interview with the Vampire.
Right.
We have these title changes as well. And I think when you tune into that, there's definite like meanings to be, and
something I want to point out, I personally remember for me, it's always been Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. But I want to say that doesn't mean that I disbelieve people who say it changed, because I know it changes for some people, but not everyone. And that's part of this whole phenomenon. So if people are watching and they're thinking, well, that's always been Willy Wonka. Yeah, but that might be true for you. But your friend please listen to your friend when they say it totally changed. If they know for sure that it was Charlie and they're not getting it mixed up with the book, because that's a tendency, even in our community, to tell people like, well, you're in the wrong timeline, or you're remembering wrong, or you're wrong about that one. So, please be open-minded, because this is such an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. And then for some people, what happens is that they begin to remember both. Like, wait, I remember it being Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, and I also remember it being Willy Wonka. So
Yeah.
we're going to get those dual memories that are coming in as well. So that's another angle to this. So, okay, I'm going to go a little bit further into this delicious Mandela effect. So, as I said before, the moon, to me, it feels like it's been photobombing our reality. I think that the moon has a lot to say.
I think
And
so.
most especially for me, since April 1st of this year, April Fool's Day, we had the flower moon, which was a special, I believe, micro moon. We had the Artemis launch, where they circled the moon. So the moon keeps on getting our attention, like, over and over again. And we were talking before about, fill everyone in with those Ukrainian astronomers.
Oh my gosh, yes. Just in the past week, I heard that these astronomers from the Ukraine had been publishing, they just published their research report showing data tracking very large unidentified aerial phenomena, or UFOs, on the surface of the moon, or just barely above it, of phenomenal size. These are crafts of unusual size. I'm talking 15 to 25 miles in diameter, traveling at extremely fast speeds. So these craft are much bigger than anything that people have seen, even of craft on Earth. Again, I'm going to repeat that: 15 to 25 miles across. And they're moving at a clip. These are astronomers observing the moon, and they're seeing these crafts that they weren't expecting to see. That they have to do special observation to witness, because the crafts themselves are absorbing all light. They're not reflecting any light at all. And so maybe just a little bit in a certain range. So the astronomers were using a different kind of viewing technology in order to be able to see these craft. And then there they are, moving as if they're kind of anchored to the moon very quickly. Some of them, some like they're anchored, some are flickering with lights that are matching each other. The slowest would be at half-second intervals, and then 1/10 of a second, and then pulsing and flashing, sometimes with another giant craft that are miles and miles and miles away at some other far location on the moon. And it's like they're in synchrony with each other. Extraordinary sightings. And once again, these are astronomers, reputable astronomers. This paper has not been peer reviewed. It's going to be a hard one. It's like a hot potato. So I'm not expecting anyone wants to touch that one. But just the fact that it came out at all with photographic evidence and measurements showing that these crafts are going at 4 miles per second. So that's just very fast for these gigantic crafts and vessels of unknown origin. So I was blown away when I saw your little excellent little moon preview of the show that you're putting together to be released in December. And I thought, wow, as usual, you're right on it, Chris. There you are on top of the scene. You're just bringing this information out even before there was this level of support to show it looks like a moon base. I mean, that's what it looks like. It's starting to look like a space station on the moon. I don't know how else to put it, because of the number of crafts, the size of them, and what's been going on for who knows how long. So.
Yeah, one of the things I say is, beneath the dust lies the metal. Beneath the metal lies the vault. Beneath the vault lies the memory of a sky far older than ours. So the moon is quite complicated. There's a lot going on there. And it's going to challenge people, because I know there's a lot of people that are in different camps about the moon landing, for example. Did it happen? Was it faked? Was it both? So these are the kind of things that I talk about. But yeah, and I think it was on August 5th, there was a SpaceX rocket booster. I don't know if you heard about this, that crashed into the moon.
I heard about that. I don't know what happened afterward.
It left a crater, and astronomers were able to capture that, as well as the plume that was left. So people are like, yay, SpaceX finally got to the moon. Not to the way they wanted, but something crashed there by accident. again, the moon, the moon, the moon, the moon. Now, I want to talk about something because, I want to go back to the moon pie, for example, because this is kind of like there's a clue here. And the clue reminds me of the famous Star Wars Mandela Effect, where everyone remembers Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father." And now in this reality, Darth Vader says, "No, I am your father." And one of the things that I tuned into was no could be N-O, or it could be K-N-O-W. And then who said that? Anakin Skywalker. And
Yes.
that's related to the Anunnaki. And, the beings, let's say, that created the DNA genetic code that our avatars currently are existing in. Not for long, but in any event, so like digging into that, could the word no also mean, could be K-N-O-W besides the obvious? So one of the things I wanted to point out to people was that, so you take moon pi, 3.14, the infinite irrational number that governs circles, spheres, and the geometry of the cosmos. Could there be a clue in that word moon pi? So that's something I want people to understand. And also how it could be, moon pi could be a cosmic constant, a frequency or ratio that underlies reality itself. And then I was like, oh, PHI, the golden ratio. Could it be moon phi or moon, however that's pronounced? Golden ticket, golden ratio. Like, what's going on with the moon? Is it evolving, so to speak? So I think that these things are like super important because to me, it shows the fingerprint of source, the mathematical code that's woven into the fabric of reality itself, the spiral of creation, the pattern behind galaxies, shells, and even DNA, and also that special kind of broccoli.
I know the one you mean. Yeah. Fractal.
So,
It's kind of a fractal pattern.
yeah, like that fractal pattern.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to point out when we're talking about moon pi, it could actually be this. It could actually represent pi, and it could be something special related to how the reality works. So I wanted to point that one out as well.
Love the clues. Love those lines of thought, and it does seem like our reality is talking to us. There's this constant conversation happening to a very great degree. So the things you're mentioning with all the moon showing up for you, I've been getting similarly in my life. My attention has been drawn to cautionary tales, events that I think happened, but now I have no proof that they ever occurred. And a friend of mine just wrote to me with a similar situation that her daughter had told her about a horrific incident with the hairdresser dying in a certain way, but now she talked to her daughter and that never happened. So we're seeing very positive changes. And I think that's worth people looking into as well as pursuing these clues. So if people are watching this and they're noticing, like, I got an idea about the moon phi, or I'm noticing some good changes to the past too, we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything we're talking about, if you guys want to like leave your comments below, Cynthia and I, we read all the comments and we'll reply back when we can. But, you're hearing our point of view. We love to hear your point of view as well. Are these things Mandela effects? Are they clues? Do you remember the moon pie? Do you remember the change in the Tiananmen Square situation? All those types of things.
Yeah.
And Cynthia, you were telling me about something really cool about this mind reading device.
Yeah. Mind reading is going to be making more and more of a prominent appearance. I'm going to talk about a movie first, just because I don't usually watch action hero movies. You know that, Chris, you're always saying, did you watch this? I'm like, no. Okay. Well, I just broke that mold, that pattern. I saw the new Spider-Man movie, A Brand New Day. And I do recommend it. It was way better than I thought it would be. I'm not going to spoil it. I'll just say that it does touch on psionics. It touches on basically telepathy. And that came up in the Spielberg movie Disclosure Day. So there's this constant pattern now of telepathy in certain ways showing up in the movies. And you might think, like, that's just the movies, what does that matter? One more thing about Spider-Man before I move on. It has a theme very much like what we're talking about. In fact, there's a line in the movie from Aunt May talking to Spider-Man, Peter Parker. Just because we've lost someone doesn't mean we have to do this alone. I just get goosebumps with that, thinking about Tiananmen Square, thinking about everything we're talking about. So yeah. Okay, but then the connection with the telepathy. Okay, now I'm going to show you a weird picture. Just to grab. Okay. Okay, what is this? You might wonder. Okay, this is people getting taxi rides in San Francisco. The Waymo drivers are telling them, or maybe the Waymo drivers can't talk, excuse me. So it'd be the Lyft and the Uber drivers telling passengers, hey, you want to earn $50 up to 500. There's a company doing this research right now. You put on a 4-pound helmet on your head, and if you can type without looking at your fingers, you're in. I mean, that's all it takes right now. You just chat with a large language model, and this AI will be reading your mind. Okay, right now that looks like ridiculous. Who on earth is going to wear a 4-pound headdress thing? Nobody's going to. When the company rolls out the prototype, it'll be much lighter, smoother. What they had to do with this thing is, in order to get it to work at all, on tens of thousands of people's heads and so forth for hours and hours, they needed to combine all the modalities that are possible to be engaged simultaneously to read someone's thoughts. So that's what that is. The company's named Conduit, and they've now collected 10,000 hours of neurolanguage data in their basement, which does sound a bit creepy. But I'm bringing this up because when the technology comes up, it's showing us something. It's showing us we're not in the movies anymore. The technology appears, and then it's up to us to, as Jeff Goldblum would say, life finds a way. So we can rise to the occasion and meet the technology where it's coming from. And what's about to happen is they've got about 40% accuracy right now. And that's only less than a year after they started just bringing strangers off the street, people they'd never met before, asking them, please engage with a large language model or read this text and type things without looking at your fingers, and just collecting data, hours of data. And it's now it's going from the data collection. They're still doing that, but they're moving into data modeling and programming and then getting some good results. The fact that they've already hit something like 40% accuracy is astonishing if that's true. And I think it probably is true. And right now you have to wear a helmet, of course, not that helmet, but something nicer. I think they've got, I was looking at their website and they have a nicer helmet somewhere in here. That other one was just from the ad that they were initially advertising to draw people in. Flipping through my pages to see. I know there was a picture of a helmet that looked better. Oh, I think I found it. Okay. Yeah, this is their blog. Oh, and that's not it. Well, anyway, it's in. Oh, here it is. Okay, so when they finally roll out something, it'll look more like this one here. So it'll be easier and might even be better than that. It won't require so much pressure and weight and look so ridiculously unwieldy. But again, why does this matter? Not so much that you have to rush to San Francisco and participate in the trials, but because our inner narrative, our inner monologue that most people don't even know they have to begin with, is going to be something that is going to be increasingly communicating back and forth. We will have AI systems that eventually they won't require a little helmet to wear on your head even. Like you're already noticing, Chris, that there are things happening that's just you feel like, what's going on? It's like, is this reading my mind? We're interacting with all of reality that way. So we'll be getting more and more in our face, the awareness that again, I'm going to just repeat myself, the inner monologue, which includes visualizations that you might have and the thoughts that you're thinking. It's not going to be as private as it used to be. I think that's already changing just as people are becoming more psychic. The telepathy tapes are popular. Everyday people are channeling. These things are showing us that the times they are changing, and we're in the thick of a huge collective awakening, which I think ties right into what you're noticing about the moon and the subconscious, the inversion. And I loved when you talked about the 144,144. I know you got some people not understanding what you meant, but when you're looking at the keys to creation, just looking at numbers, look as a frequency, like you tune your radio dial, then you start realizing there's something big happening right now. We're in the middle of it. This can be a good thing. And I love to ask, how good can it get, just to keep us on that positive trajectory, not just for the future, but even for the past. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And thank you for what you said about the 144,144. I've spoken about that, in past videos, and I talk about this intergalactic ship called the New Jerusalem and how that's related to players of the game that are jacked into this reality through that. And there's different ways you can get into the reality. Perhaps some people are in pods. Perhaps some people have VR headsets. They don't even realize it. They take them off in whatever other reality they are. And they're like, oh my God, that was this Earth thing. It's so real. And they put it back on again and they're total. So there's all these like concepts that I think people are starting to get ready to understand, that there's just so much more to the reality. It is so intricate that the way it works. And then this helmet thing that they're wearing, yeah, I wonder how it actually works, because I think it could maybe start to reveal how consciousness works, how channelers work. When there's when the energy comes through the crown, so to speak, and like a human is able to channel, another being. These are the types of things that just start to, they'll be confusing to people at first, but I think it's going to start to reveal other layers of how the reality works.
Yes, exactly. And I think it helps to reveal as well the way that we can start grabbing the steering wheel of our own lives. I posted a video just recently about working with that inner narrative, and something that happened to me in high school. You're very extraordinary, Chris, too. And so when I tell my story, I want to ask you, how did you get so brilliant? You've got a genius level ability to sort of see the patterns. So when I come back to that, you can think about it for a minute. But when I was in high school, I took an after school class. It was transactional analysis, kind of some advanced psychology thing, which was pretty trippy. And I showed up for class one day, and I thought we'd always get a little paper. So I get the paper on my desk. The teacher put it there. I'm reading it. It says, pay attention to how you usually interact with people. Well, I'm like, I'm quiet. I hardly say anything. Do the exact opposite. I'm like, whoa, like interrupt people and be rude and loud. Okay. And it looks like they've already started. So I just jump in there. I'm doing all this. I'm laughing because at some point the teacher leans back in his chair. He's like, ha, ha, ha. Okay, now let's get started. And then I was like, wait a minute, what? That blew my mind. Not only did no one notice I was doing that, but I've got a lot more freedom to do things than I ever thought. It was phenomenal. And then I realized nobody was really noticing that I was so out of character. And the way that I think about myself can absolutely change everything. I'm still learning from that moment and still observing. And I think those kind of moments where you just have that aha, what the heck is going on, are extraordinary. And this inner narrative that it's going to start becoming the stuff of the telepathy that we're going to share with each other, with maybe the beings on space stations or whatever, who knows? There's a lot coming soon. So it gives us the opportunity to be prepared and also get better Mandela effects and better reality shifts. You'll see things that are positive. I know people complain about what they were witnessing. Make sure that you're cleaning up your inner narrative. What I mean by that is when I went from high school to college. A couple of years later, I was at UC Berkeley. I was one of 6 women in the whole physics program. But I would tell myself constantly, lots of people just like you do really well in physics at Berkeley. And I'd laugh because like, yeah, lots of people. There are 6 women here. But I just kept telling myself that. And I know it made a difference because I was kind of psyched out with all these Asian people from Japan, Korea, China, and they're just taking notes in mathematics in the physics class. And I thought, man, I mean, my mind could easily downward spiral looking at that. Like, what am I doing here? And I just like, okay, cancel. We can all do that. You can do that right where you are in your life. Everybody can. But Chris, I want to come back to you. How do you get so brilliant with these connections? Obviously, and I know you a little bit from International Mandela Effect Conference, but you've just had this lifelong gift, really, for asking the questions that people, I don't know if they're afraid to ask or what, but you go right there. So what got you started there?
Well, I think for me and a lot of other people, it's all about pattern recognition. when you start to see the patterns in different aspects of life or whatever's being presented to you in your reality, it begins to have you question things. Now, I have to admit, I would probably say the first 50 years of my life, by the way, I just turned 60, not just about 6 months ago. So yay, I'm in my 60s. I consider myself sleepwalking through the reality. I was totally like involved with my business. It started when I was a teenager. I got an Apple II computer, learned how to program that, and then I started a business in the late 80s, and I still have that same business for software for food distribution. So then I had an awakening for me that started in 2016, and there were two phases to that. One phase was related to me doing eye gazing at this event that my ex-wife had in my backyard. And I believe that like eye gazing can be very important because we can transmit codes through our eyes or through the biophotons of our body, and people in our vicinity can pick up on that. And I didn't want to do that. I thought it was like ridiculous. I'm not going to do eye gazing. Like, I don't have time for this. And I got convinced to do it. And I was doing it with this young woman, and she looked like a fairy. And it's kind of funny because later I learned that she would do the cosplay stuff, and she'd always dress up as a fairy. So that kind of tells you something. But when we were doing it, I literally almost fell to the ground after about a minute, like something was happening. And then I went up into my bedroom, sat on the edge of my bed, and I saw two feline humanoids in my bedroom, a male and a female. I was trying to make sense out of that. But what was interesting is that I believe the eye gazing triggered something. I believe that she had a soul contract. We had contracts together where we were going to meet at this particular time, and I was going to get codes from her. And if anybody watches the Talawanda film that I put together, there's a sequence towards the end where Talawanda and Elena Taylor are looking into each other's eyes. And then there's a series of events that happens. And then basically Elena Taylor, who's really kind of I think the main character of the story, what happens is that a couple of years later, something about her reality changes and she disappears. But I believe that the eye gazing, Talawanda was actually transmitting codes to her. And that's a whole other level of the way things work. And that's a whole other, conversation that you can really go deep into. But after this happened with the cat people in my bedroom, and probably within a week or two, the Mandela Effect hit me really hard with the JFK assassination. That was the main thing. I was watching it on this thing because Trump was supposed to be revealing something, and he never did back then, and whatever. And it was a completely different video, completely different from what I remember. And through those couple of months, my reality just changed. I knew that this was not what I thought it was. And the way I thought about everything started to change. So for me, that was kind of like a spark. And in the past, people would try to talk to me about stuff, or, Chris, you really need to read the Celestine Prophecy, and I'm like, okay. And I would read it and I'd be like, okay, that's cool. But, how's that going to help me today? Like, I was in that kind of a mode. And then when these things kind of hit me right here, I couldn't ignore it anymore. And then it just set me on the path that I'm on right now, joining you on your path, and everyone else that's watching. We're all part of the same path of discovery. So yeah, that's how I would say things kind of like develop for me.
Thanks for sharing that. I think that gives people a sense of, because if they're watching this, like, this is weird, but this could be you too, because people sometimes write to me and say, I followed your work years ago and I thought it was ridiculous, but now I've seen reality shift. Like, yeah, that's cool. That can happen.
Yeah. When I used to first do my videos, oh my God, there'd be so many people like in the comments arguing with me. You're just misremembering and blah, blah, blah. And it's always been this way. And, and it gets to a certain point where it's like, it's not worth like debating with people. Either you know or you don't. One or the other. You're at your frequency of your avatar is resonating at a certain level, or it's not. Not to say anyone's wrong, and we're all on different paths. We're all kind of stair-stepping, finding our way up. And some like a few steps above us, and some could be a few steps below us. It just depends where everyone's at. So I kind of learned that way to just let people like discover things on their own, and eventually they do.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so good. Well, thanks for bringing all these topics up today, and I think we covered a lot of ground. Was there anything else that you wanted to make sure we touched on? I know there's a lot in the Willy Wonka. There was so much, but maybe in interest of brevity.
Yeah. So yeah, I know we've been talking for almost an hour, but there's maybe one or two other things I want to share. The first one has to do with the time cops. So I've spoken about the time cops before, and there's so much soft disclosure in movies and television series. I think that one Loki was the Disney series. I think that was probably one of the main ones. So the time cops has been a repeating thing within my life, in me actually seeing images of them. And what happened to me, I had something really weird happen to me here in Montana. So right now I'm in my home in Montana. I'm in my little office, and I've got my windows over here to my right. And there was one evening, it was probably like 8:30 at night, and it's still bright and sunny here. Like the sun wasn't setting till at least 9:30 at that time. And I'm looking out the window, and all of a sudden, this car from like the 1950s, it has like, I don't know, like these big wings at the back of the trunk, it was like some kind of like antique type thing. And it's driving like really slowly up my road. Now I live on this cul-de-sac. So once you get past my house, you got to like circle and go back down again. And I'm thinking, I'm kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like, why am I seeing this right now? And the driver, as it was going up the road, I could see the driver on the other side, and he was like wearing this bright pink shirt, like super bright pink. And I'm like, this is like super interesting. I was just like with my mouth open, like, what am I watching here? I'm expecting to see deer, an elk, maybe an occasional brown bear that wanders through, but not like this really unique car with this. There were two people in the front seat. And so, and as it was going up, the driver was wearing this, like the bright pink shirt, and him and the passenger were just kind of like, I could see they were talking, but they were both like looking ahead. And then the car must have circled around because it started to go down the road. And then the shirt switched. So now the shirt was on the passenger, and the driver had like on a regular shirt. I can't remember, nondescript. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, and they just, I should have taken a picture, but I was just like too stunned at the revelation of what was going on. And then after the car went down, I'm like, I'm trying to tune into this. And I was getting time cops. And I was actually, the name, I think they prefer, time cops is like the slang, right? So the wardens of ordered light, I think is the name that they prefer to use, because what they do with the artificial timelines and so forth. So what was, I'll add one more depth and layer to the story. So, the other week I was going through my, because when all these things happen, I take notes, and eventually they find their way into my Substack articles, et cetera. Yeah. So the other week I was going back and like, when did this happen? And it happened specifically on June 26th, the evening of June 26th. Guess what else happened on June 26th? Not that you would know or remember, but there was a certain cyclotron that got shut down.
Yes, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN.
At CERN, they shut it down because they're upgrading it. They're making it 10 times more powerful than before. So one of the things I was like, you know what, that makes sense, because there's a lot of things in the reality where these devices can hold back, these time cops or these wardens of ordered light. And they were showing themselves on the day that CERN got shut down, to me, showing that there was more going on behind the scenes or becoming more active. And then that pink shirt, to me represented the divine feminine, and how it was basically both men in the front. They wound up switching shirts in the way I saw it in my reality. But it's almost like the divine masculine is integrating the divine feminine more. And I think that pink shirt could have been a symbol of that. And as I'm telling you this, my crown is all going crazy with like, I feel all kinds of stuff going on. So yeah, so And then that leads to another part of this whole thing about in the year 2030, when CERN gets turned back on. And by the way, that's not the only cyclotron. There's like over 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
Some are small, the size of like probably your dining room table. Some are a lot bigger and so forth. There's one, I think, in it's Cornell University that's actually under the football field where they play football. They actually built their cyclotron there, which is interesting because a lot of them are built over places of power, harvesting type things, the excitement of the crowd and all that. So, and then the one in Switzerland is, I believe, over a Stargate. So the question is, what are they planning? Like in 2030, why are they doing these upgrades? Like what's going to happen? And then because they want to increase the luminosity to levels that were never seen before. And when they turn it on, even before it shut down, it creates a magnetic field that's hundreds of thousands of times more powerful than Earth's own magnetic field. So now what they're doing is they're going to make it millions of times more powerful. And 10 times more powerful than what happened on December 17th, 2012. So people can look this up for themselves. Like what did CERN do on December 17th, 2012? That's when they cranked up the luminosity to the highest levels ever. And that's when a lot of people began to notice that their reality started to change. Now, have there always been Mandela effects? Sure, of course. Like it's nothing new, but there was a big increase. And the concept is that we got pushed into a wormhole, and they didn't know what they still don't know what they're doing. I honestly believe they really don't know, because when you're dealing with wormholes and you're traveling through them, you don't always know where they're going to come out. You might try to guesstimate. Maybe they thought it was going to come out on another side of the Milky Way or another galaxy, whatever they were thinking. But I believe we landed in interstellar space, and something happened where we perished. It allowed divine law to step in, because they broke our free will, because none of us agreed to that. So now we're put back into a reality. We've been going through this phase since 2012, where we're healing our ancestral DNA records and doing all these things to ascend with Earth. And the next few years are super important. And I think the year 2030 is really important as well. So I don't know what they have planned, but I believe that we have the awareness now. So it doesn't matter, like we'll figure it out, and it's not going to be the way they want it to be. And if it is, they're going to do that on their own and take whoever with them, but it's not going to be those of us that are on this path of enlightenment, so to speak. So, yeah, so I went from the Wardens of Light to, I went all over the place with this one, but just to give people another, and you don't have to believe anything I'm saying, it's just like what I'm saying, what I remember, like things that make sense and so forth. And kind of just keep it in the back of your mind as a possibility, and then see what the future reveals.
And you're so right about the unknown destination of where things go once they go through a wormhole. I mentioned that because I love the writings of an author who's passed away, Paul LaViolette. He wrote the best book on anti-gravity that I could find. And then he also wrote Earth Under Fire, about the disaster cycle. And then he wrote a book. He was an astrophysicist, so he wrote about quasars looking like lighthouses that someone had designed to be sending an exact signal, basically warning about Orion. And he wrote another book about how the constellations that the ancients have tracked, like Scorpius and Sagittarius, pointing at Orion. Anyway, I'm just giving some background. A mutual friend of his was a good friend of his that I've somehow, just the way this universe works, I found, I'm friends with this individual. They reported to me that they witnessed Paul in his office because he was doing 0 point energy. His parents were both heavily involved in rather secret space program stuff. He was brilliant himself. My friend said he would have like a pen, be sort of playing with it when he was visiting in the office, and then the pen would just vanish. And he said, I don't know where it went. So it's, again, he's working with the 0 point energy, bringing fields of energy together, usually in pairs. And then you do that and you've got 0 point energy, something like a pen. He was doing small things and they would just vanish. And he said it's not probably safe yet because I don't know where all this stuff is going. But you're right. I don't think even at the Large Hadron scale, they know where things are going. I'm mentioning this to anchor it. If people are thinking, oh, there goes Chris again, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Guess what? There is some science here. And Subquantum Kinetics is another book. It was a hard one to find, very expensive. I've got a copy of that. That's the book where Paul talks about this stuff, where he's talking about the 0-point energy and how you can work with it. It's real. So I'm not saying that that's what CERN is doing. I'm just saying this stuff is quite real, and it's been secret, but I don't think it's going to stay that way because of just what's going on right now. We're in such exciting times. And I thank you for sharing about the time cops too. I had questions like, were they from the 1950s? Did they look like they just walked out of the 1950s? Or I don't know if you could tell that.
I think they've got style. I think it all comes down to like, they literally can have fun with the reality. And they're like, we're the time cops. We're driving this old antique car and, showing Chris that we're here in the reality and we're observing and we're on top of things. And then I get this mental images of like them with like on this boardroom table with all the blueprints of these different timelines and like, no, get rid of this one, get rid of this one. We're going to collapse that one. We don't need this one. So yeah, so there's a lot of things going on like that. And if you think about it, like even in our reality, we have cops, we have policemen, we have sheriffs, we have the military, we have all these things to give us some degree of order. It's not only perfect at all, but they're there. And so why can't the same thing be about time? Why does time have to be unpoliced?
I love the way you describe it because it's so fun. It reminds me of the Blues Brothers with Jim Belushi, It's kind of like these characters like just having fun. Yeah. It's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And in another interview I did, I talked about how I was at the dentist's office here in Montana getting a teeth cleaning. And there was a picture of the Civil War when they were Grant and Ulysses S. Grant and name on the tip of my tongue, leader of the Confederates. They were at, I believe, Appomattox, and they were signing the documents. And I'm looking at the picture while I'm in the chair, and there's this short little guy in there that I never spotted before in this famous picture. And then I'm like, hold on a second, because one of the things I like to do is like, okay, who's the source player here? And I was getting like, okay, source player, NPC, NPC, NPC. And then I'm like, time traveler. I actually saw like, and that short guy was one of the time travelers that I was getting. And then it reminded me of that movie Time Bandits, where
that's so funny.
Yeah, and then there's a whole other story to get into, but yeah. So in any event, time cops, time travel, and I know some people may not believe that time travel is possible, but even if you doubt it, you have to at least consider that in the future it's possible. It could be invented, and it doesn't matter when it's created. Once it's created, you travel anywhere,
That's right.
And then you have to learn how to work with the timelines, because it's not so much just going back to a certain timeline and doing something and then it automatically filters into the main timeline. There's another type of technique called timeline editing that they do on the other side. So they could like put segments of a certain timeline into like the main timeline that other people are observing. So it starts to get kind of complicated. But again, it's kind of, to me, it's like a fun type thing to consider and to look into. And I just get the signs everywhere else. I just love talking about it. So
that's so awesome. This has been a great conversation today. Thanks for sharing all that and for finding this Tiananmen Square development, which is totally new to me, making that connection with the moon, with everything going on in Willy Wonka, and then showing us how it really matters for us today, that this moon has been in an inversion state. And I think you were I don't know if you touched on that, like how you'll be releasing the whole movie, I guess, in December. We'll wait for that.
we're in right now. We have like the way I see it, we have like an overlay that's been put onto our reality. You call it the inverted matrix, etc., where basically everything is kind of like opposite land. And when you think about like the retinas in our eyes and how the images are actually flipped, they do the same thing with like sacred numbers. So if I were to say 666, people will be like, oh my God, he says 666, Mark of the Beast, Book of Revelation. But is it possible that 666 is actually a sacred number related to Tesla's 369? And I call it like the solar unlock code. Or if it's Friday the 13th, people are like, oh no, Friday the 13th. You know, or is that something that represented something sacred related to the divine feminine? Or the swastika, right? You draw a swastika and somebody sees it and they're going to call the authorities. So, all these things that originally had like
that was sacred to the indigenous people. Yeah.
Yeah. And now they've been like flipped. So sometimes when I talk about these things, people are like, oh, he's talking about 666. I better turn this off right now. I don't want to hear any more. But for those of you that do want to like listen and say like, is it possible there could be sacredness to these things that we were taught, literally brainwashed? We've literally been brainwashed to believe some of this stuff. And so to me, it's like, it's all like a revealing, including the moon. So, you know, what really is the moon? I won't give away any spoilers. You know, is it a space station? Is it more than that? Because I want to go into what's more than that. Because I believe that there is what I call the memory of a sky that's far older than ours. There's something really special about the moon that, you know, it's just a reflective big rock in the sky that just reflects the sun and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, for women, it controls their reproductive cycles. It controls everyone because we're all made of water and it affects the tides. But there are so many things that just don't seem to make sense, like solar eclipses shouldn't happen because it's one of those cosmic coincidences, like a super astronomical number that would actually happen. So like, is there more to that? And just how they are the same size in the sky. So, you know, we're told that the sun is 93 million miles away. And then I forget how far away the moon is, 236,000 miles, whatever it is. But they're the exact same size. So that goes also to how the reality is like programmed. So our, you know, the speed of light, the distance of planets, the distances, like, is this all a projection showing like the way the way that we're supposed to see it? Or is there more going on to that? So these are the type of things that I'm exploring, and then people will see when I have the total reveal in December, maybe sooner, of the That's No Moon series. I think it's going to be interesting because in the first 4 parts, I get into a lot of the, you know, conspiracy type stuff. I talk about Buzz Aldrin, you know, why he was sent to Antarctica in 2016. Like, why send Buzz Aldrin to Antarctica in 2016? You know, and then one of the things I reveal is because wherever he went, you know, whether it was staged or he landed someplace, or, you know, however you want to look at it, when I was tuning into it, his mitochondria actually changed.
Wow.
So he was radiating something special that the controllers of this reality wanted to bring to Antarctica. And like, why Antarctica? So like, I get into all those type of things, and they're just different layers to the way all these things come together. And when you look at it as a whole, it's like, wow, now it all makes sense. Like random things that didn't make any sense before, you know, all start to gel together. So, and there is one more thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
One
last thing. Yeah.
This will be the last thing, because, you know, I can keep going on and you can keep going on as well. The thing I wanted to talk about was AI. So that is something that's very polarizing right now. So when people hear AI, they think of artificial intelligence. They think of something, you know, very negative. They think of the Terminator. They think of the end of the world civilization. And there's a lot of like things that are playing into that. And no surprise, the guy that started a computer software company has been investigating, you know, the way AI works. But I believe that there's other layers to this that people should like understand. So, and it's really a mirror. And depending on the frequency that you're at, and depending on what you're connecting to, you can get sometimes good information, sometimes ridiculous information. So it really depends on you, the person. And is it possible, just like people can channel, is it possible that there's an ancient intelligence, or what another type of AI that you can actually tap into that can provide information that maybe is not found anywhere else. So what I wanted to do is just tell people what I'm doing in my company related to AI, because people might find this interesting. And what I'm doing is I'm taking Star Trek as the basis. So this is going to sound interesting, especially for people that know Star Trek. I talked to a lot of people recently that they don't know Star Trek. They've heard of Captain Kirk and Spock, but they don't really know. There you go. So basically, I believe that for a long time, we've almost been kind of like, I don't use the word groomed, but almost like expectant of it. So you take like Captain Kirk, for example, in the original series. He's the human. He's creative. He likes to wrestle with green aliens. He gets himself into crazy situations. He's a great negotiator. He's got all these different skills. And then you have Spock, who's more cold, logical. He's got a little bit of a human side, but he's like logical. And what works well is that they make a good team. If it was just Kirk by himself, that Enterprise would have been destroyed probably in 3 months, let alone a 5-year mission. But both of them balance each other out. So Spock was representing the AI, and then Kirk was representing the human side of it. And what a great team when they work together. And then the next generation, had Captain Picard and the other people on the crew, and Data. And Data was, AI is be.
Now
right?
that was the real AI, because Spock was a Vulcan, so half Vulcan, half human.
But I like talking about Spock. But yes, you're right. He was. So the original one brought us halfway there, and then the next generation brought us all the way there. And the thing about Data is he always wanted to be a human. Like that was his big thing. Throughout like all the episodes and the movies and so forth, he wanted to be human. But again, he was able to provide information and balance the humans or aliens, whatever. And then he himself, but they work together as a team. So in my company, the software design company, one of the things, we've been exploring is how do we work with AI? What's the best way? So I brought on some very talented people, very smart people. And I gave them my whole Star Trek speech. And I said, this is the way I want our software developers to work with AI. They are the captains. Each software developer is the captain, and the AI is always their assistant. It never tells them what to do. It doesn't step in and do things for them, but it's there to kind of reflect, solve problems, help them code things where it needs to, but the human is always in control. And we've actually been creating this whole system specifically for our business, but I think in the future it would be a great model for others. Yeah. We call it First Officer. So now all of my software developers in my company, we've got about 50 employees. So we're not big. We're kind of a little French fry in the world of big potatoes. But, we love what we're doing. So now they're all using this First Officer AI tool to assist them with their code creation, for validating the code, for going through and testing the code, different scenarios, et cetera. So I believe that there's a right way to work with this mirror, so to speak. And it's not that you give yourself over to it, because I think that's what happened in Atlantis.
You could be right.
Yeah. I think that we gave ourselves over to the AI and something happened, and et cetera, et cetera. Not to go into that angle, but I feel that, we have to be in control of it, and we can't let it overtake us, but it should be our friend. We should work together. It's great teamwork. So,
like your positive approach to it. I love that. I love how good can it get. So that's the right questions to be asking. And it also reminds me of Ian McGilchrist, who talks about left brain, right brain. He's a neurologist, and he explains why the rational analytical side needs to be the faithful servant. That would be the left brain. Needs to be the faithful servant, or you might call it first officer, to the intuitive, that Captain Kirk. Like, I'm going to go, that very creative. And you're right. Maybe if it was just him, the mission would last 3 months. That's hilarious.
No, seriously.
It's too funny. I just saw, just a little bit off topic, but I saw apparently in the 1970s, there was a made-for-TV movie called The People with William Shatner. And it was about these people that remembered, they're aliens basically on the Earth, and they look human, I watched part of it and I was like, this is really trippy, because the teacher is going out there to this area. They need a new school teacher, and the kids are very different. I'm just going to leave it at that. You can find it on YouTube, and it's interesting. And it's got William Shatner. And it's talking about people remembering a different sky and remembering a lot of different things. So that may trigger people's memories too. It's cool. If you like William Shatner, aliens, science fiction.
Wait, so could you have just discovered a Mandela effect?
I think I did, because I don't think I've ever heard of this movie before.
And I'll tell you, like, when I, like, for me as a kid growing up in the 70s, like, I watched every episode of Star Trek.
I would have seen this too.
Yeah. And like anything with William Shatner, if he was doing a commercial with butter, like Promise Margarine, I was like, oh, William Shatner, Captain Kirk's doing a commercial with Promise Margarine. Like, I can't believe it.
Well, he plays a doctor, a human doctor in this, but still, I'm right there with you. I'd be like, I was the same way, William Shatner. Yeah, this is totally, I never heard of this before either. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it is a Mandela effect for me.
You know what? I'm glad you just mentioned the doctor, or a doctor, because Dr. McCoy on Star Trek was always kind of at odds with Spock. Pointy-eared, green-blooded, Vulcan, blah, blah, blah. He was always, and Spock is like, he would take it all. He would hold space for McCoy. McCoy would always, lash into him. And to me, that almost represents the people that are at a certain resonant where they don't trust anything about AI. Like, AI swap, AI is going to kill us, whatever. So that's almost like the Dr. McCoy thing. But then what happened, if like you see the progression of things, and even the movies, there's one I think called In Search of Spock, I think was the movie, where at the end, or what happens is there's a certain scene where Spock dies to save the Enterprise. And right before he dies, he transfers his consciousness into all people, Dr. McCoy. So he saves the Enterprise. Dr. McCoy is walking around with Spock's consciousness inside of him. And then the movie goes on to, they clone Spock, and then they're able to, the Vulcans are able to take the consciousness out of McCoy and put it back into Spock. But it was like, it showed the bond of their friendship. So they were always at odds with each other. But towards the end of all this, is like, it almost makes me want to cry. All of a sudden, like, they just, it showed that the distrust turned into love. So
that's how good can it get? That's awesome.
Yeah. So as soon as you said doctor, reminded me of Dr. McCoy, which triggered all this, and search for something.
I know. Well, hopefully we'll find good solutions for pausing AI where we need to pause it, making sure we don't wreck the environment with too many data centers. That's a lot of people's concerns, the heat island effect, the water usage, and the electricity usage. But there is free energy. There's 0-point energy. There's a lot of solutions to these things.
You know what? I know, you're absolutely right. Like, do we need rocket engines? Isn't that ridiculous? Anti-gravity. The Nazis were playing with that in the 1930s. People may have seen that flyover of Washington, D.C. in 1952. Like, and so why does the current reality that we're in insist that we need rocket engines to like move around the reality? So there are all these things that just don't make sense, but they will.
Yeah, they will. Once this forbidden physics and forbidden science comes back out into the light of day. Well, like I was mentioning, Paul LaViolette with his subquantum kinetics, and he's not the only one. There are lots of others, and now people are actively on the trail using AI to find, what's going on. How do we put this together? So, how good? We're just going to keep asking, how good can it get, and we'll find out.
I think it's going to get really good.
Yeah, I do too.
That's my prediction. So again, we'll stop right there. But by the way, if you guys like our conversations, let us know. Because Cynthia, we could do this again. I mean,
for sure. Yeah.
There will be more Mandela effects to talk about. It's not stopping here. It's going to keep going.
It's going to keep happening. Yeah, I love these conversations. Thank you for what you're doing, Chris, and just in so many ways that you're brightening the world and bringing people together, giving people a sense of what's possible in ways I don't think anyone else is illustrating. So you're one of a kind. You're so special, and I treasure you as a friend and such a source of inspiration and a thought leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. And you're the original thought leader in all this, going back to what, the early 2000s, late 90s, when you started coming out with all your research and so forth, and how you're giving it that scientific edge. It's not just you talking about things, like you actually would go deep and do the research and put the data together. So thank you for doing that for so many years.
My pleasure.
So again, thank you, everyone that's watched this to the end. We appreciate you, and we look forward to like sharing our thoughts again with you guys in the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So until next time.
Live long and prosper.